Like most people on YouTube, I spend too much time reading the journal Foreign Affairs. In its March-April 2007 issue, Stanford professor James Fearon talked about the prospect of Iraq's civil war. If you remember correctly, during this time, the political argument was whether or not Iraq was in a civil war. And the Democrats argued that, in fact, it was, and that American troops should not be caught in the middle of it. The professor examines the question of whether or not the violence in Iraq qualified as a civil war, and then proceeded to talk about what the policy implications were for that issue. For the purpose of his analysis, he defined a civil war as a violent conflict within a country fought by organized groups that aim to take power at the center or in a region or to change government policies. Using this definition, he argued that even the conservative estimates of 60,000 deaths would make Iraq the 9th deadliest civil war since 1945 in terms of annual casualties. His comparative analysis makes a very good case that Iraq is in fact in a state of civil war. However, I noticed something about the cases that he was citing. He was talking about places like Lebanon, Algeria, Sudan, Turkey. In the context of Iraq, in these cases, does anyone else notice a pattern? These civil wars are Muslims killing Muslims. That current events, recent history, and history going back for centuries depict a bloody conflict within Islam, of Muslims killing other Muslims. And in fact, the U.S. isn't so much engaged in a civil war in Iraq as the entire war on terror and the terrorist attacks against us and against our allies are integrally related to this idea of a civil war within Islam itself. During this week, there have been many videos produced talking about how Islam is violent to those outside of the Ummah, and how Islam is unjust to those within its control who are within the Ummah, women, minorities. This video, however, is about a different issue. It is about the failure of Islam as a political ideology to keep the civil peace. As I've talked about briefly before, looking at the history of Islam's beginning, within the Hijaz, there was substantial violence, intertribal conflicts that Islam was posited as the solution to. That if everyone believed in the same God and everyone followed these same rules, that all of these attacks between these people would come to an end. However, nowadays, Muslims like to talk about how threatened they are with violence and death from outside of their own ranks, from Israel, from America, from the evil jinns. But a Muslim is more likely today to be killed by another Muslim than by anyone else. And this is not a disorganized criminal issue. These are organized political gangs, militias, armed corps that are purposely targeting other Muslims with death. Look at Palestine. Is a Palestinian more likely to be killed by a Muslim there or by an Israeli? Consider all of the violence of Fatah directed against Hamas and Hamas directed against Fatah. If you say that that's an issue of an ongoing colonial occupation, then explain Algeria. The French have been gone from there for, almost half a century? Why do Muslims continue to kill Muslims in Algeria? Egypt. Why is it the case that Muslims kill Muslims? Across Islam, where there is violence, it is more likely to be Muslims killing Muslims than Muslims killing someone else or someone else killing Muslims. Given that Muhammad said that Islam would lead to internal peace within the Ummah, why has this not occurred? Because it was a lie. It's false. It's detached from reality. It has never occurred, except for maybe at those times when they had successfully killed enough of the people that disagreed with them that the only people that remained were in agreement. But as generations pass and people choose to pursue their values, Islam becomes bloody again, with Muslims killing Muslims. Why does this matter to us non-Muslims? First of all, in this violent conflict, the weaker party tends to blame us for propping up the stronger party, and that is one of the causes of them attacking us. Second, it has been very frustrating to non-Muslims when they point to some act of violence by a Muslim directed outside of the Ummah and said to a moderate Muslim, why is it that you're not voicing condemnation for this act? It's because the simple truth is that if they speak, they will be killed by another Muslim. And this is a fact that they are hesitant to admit to because it is a confession that Islam is a lie. In summary, those non-Muslims that have seen this video, I encourage you to stick it in the face of Muslims that Islam is a failure because Muslims kill other Muslims. To Muslims that may see this video, I challenge you to face the brutal facts of reality. This exists. It has existed throughout history of Islam. Explain it or draw the appropriate conclusion that you are following a false faith, as all faiths are false.